I'm Lizzie with Long Distance Gamers, and today I'm going to be talking about how to play board games remotely. Now, I'm talking about games, physical games, on a tabletop. One or all sides have a copy, but you are separated by great distances. Like, I live in Ohio, my best friends live in New York. We actually became gamers when Brooks lived in Ohio with me, and then when he announced he was moving to New York, we decided we weren't going to let the distance stop us from gaming together. So we've been playing games remotely for like 6 years now, 7 years, something like that. It's been a while, so we definitely have some things under our belt. So hopefully nothing like 2020 lockdowns happen again, but just in case, if you are looking for ways to find ways to game with your family, friends, maybe your daughter went off to college across the country, can't come home for Sunday game night, but still wants to participate, get her a laptop with a webcam, you're good to go. But I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the things on remote gaming. So the first and most important concept is honesty. You don't want to play with a cheater. So there's things that you might happen in remote play, like a card might get accidentally flipped and it changes, you know what they have in their hand, and that gives you a huge advantage. So you would want to say, hey, I saw your card. And as a group, you can decide what to do. So like, for instance, with like Love Letter, you have a card of one hand. If someone sees that card, that could be disastrous. But if it's your turn and they just saw that, well, that's the one I was planning on playing anyway, so we could do that. Or, okay, yeah, that completely messes it up because you saw that I have a princess. So we reshuffle and restart the round. But it's hugely important to have that trust, have honesty in your gaming, because none of these other concepts will really work if you don't have that fundamental one. So getting off the soapbox, so one of the probably most common ones is, how do you separate the pieces? The running side, they are the ones that have the game. They do the game setup and play the game pretty much like normal. They might just show you your hand or whatnot, but if you're the running side and you have the copy of the game, but how do you set it up so that you can just pull out the cards needed for the random side? So like for Parade, we get around this by just putting them in stacks of the different colors. So that way, when they show you your hand, you can just go through and grab the color. Or if you're playing with multiple people on one side, I use what's called a boogie board, but you could use paper and pencil. But you could just write down, so like you have 5 cards in your hand for Parade. So I just do 1 through 5, and I just abbreviate. So it might be like a red 3 and a green 4. I do blue BL and black BK, just so that I can know the difference. But now you know that you have a black 7 and you want to play the black 7. So you know that this is your 3rd card. So the running side, what they'll do is they'll have these set up. And let me grab the black 7 so that it'll actually be what the example is. Black 7. And we have some other cards. So you want to play the black 7. So the running side will hold these up, which is another reason why you might have to be like, hey, can you move my cards 1 and 2 away from each other sometimes? But having a card holder, that way you could keep them in line with the running side, and the running side can easily hold them up to the camera. So my black 7 is my number 3. So everyone would just agree. So 1, 2, 3. So this one would be played, they'd put it out, we would respond to the game accordingly. Now if the black 7 had been over here instead, so this is number 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is number 4. Or it might make more sense to, go 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be number 2. But as a group, you just decide which way you count from. So that way, if you say, hey, I want to play my number 2 card, the running side would be like, this card? Yep, okay, put it down and do it as applicable. So yeah, so card holders are really nice to use. Some games, you have more cards than can fit comfortably in this and still see. So I do have this handy dandy card holder that is a beast. But it has 4 layers, so you can easily spread out the cards and they could still see what they have. However, this is much heavier than these are. So I only use this if I cannot fit them in here. But if you are tight for money and you want to be able to just have the most bang for your buck, I would recommend getting something that has layers like this, so that way you can have the option of having a higher card. Okay, so there is that. I'm going to move these cards. And then another key thing is, how do you move? So, you know, there's hex movement or square movement. So we actually have created these. This is just a spare piece from Post-Human Saga, I believe. But we have that for square movement. And then we have this for hex movement. So we'll go over square. So like you will be in the center and then you would just go out. So if you're on a spot, so let's say you're here and you want to come up here, that is out your 1. So you would just say, hey, I'm going to go out my 1. And then everyone moves you there. And then maybe I want to come over here, which this would be out my 2. So you move out your 2. So that is one way to do it. And then hex is the similar concept, just there's 6 sides. So you're in here. So let's get a hex board. So you're in here, you might want to come out this 1 or the 2, and you just go, okay, I'm going to go out my 2, and so on and so forth. But you will notice that I have numbers on these. So when for Nirishima Hex you're placing armies, it wouldn't make sense to have this being utilized. So I have went ahead and put numbers. I just printed them out with a label maker and stuck them on. So that way I could say, hey, I'm going to stick, you know, my unit, whatever it's called, on 12. And if it has, you know, double melee and these are all covered, then I might say I'm going to stick it on 12 with the double melee out my 1, for instance. Or if they're uncovered, you can say I'm going to stick it on 12 with the double melee pointing to 7. So that's one way to get around movement, around placement. For games like Santorini, like this is probably an anathema because I've written them on the actual board, so some people might consider this ruined, but it makes it so that I didn't have to 3D, or not 3D print, why do I keep wanting to say that, but print it and still visible. I'm going to keep this until it's probably no longer able to be used anyway, so, but this way you could be like, okay, if you have your piece that is on D4, you could be like, okay, I'm going to move my piece from D4 to C3, and then as you, if you know Santorini, you also then build around you, and then I'm going to build on C2, for instance, and then so all sides can do that and keep track of everything, because this is one that you definitely want to see what is going on. And then some other movements like hidden movement. We have an example of Whitehall, which is, you know, letters from Whitechapel, similar. So the police move on these black dots, while Jack the Ripper moves on these spaces. So the police are visible while Jack is writing his down on the board or on his paper. So, but to say where the police are, you might say, hey, if you're on between 10 and 11, I'm going to move my piece from underneath 11 to above 11 between 9 and 11. So, you know, you could say that. You just kind of describe how you're moving it. The thing I love about Spectre Ops and games like this is not only can you take one of these and laminate it and send it to the other side, so if they don't have a copy, they can easily play with you. Also, I think these are on Board Game Geek, which is a website you can go for board game accessory, or not accessories, but just like more board game knowledge. But you can go like, see, they have like I8, okay, so it goes A through W and 1 through 32, and it's, you know, makes sense. So you could easily keep track, and if you are playing with Jack, you could easily, or not Jack, whoever, it's not agents, or maybe it isn't, I don't remember what, the ones that are hidden, you could easily keep track of where everyone is, look at the screen, see, okay, they're at these places, but I need to move here, and then you write down it, and then you say, okay, I've moved, and then they can say, okay, I'm going to move from P20 to P21, so that is an option there. So that helps there. And then if you don't want to, like with Nearshima Hex, with these, if you don't want to print out the numbers and put them there, I do have this option as well where I have them printed on these little tiddlywinks and I can put them on the board. However, it would be really, really fiddly with Nearshima Hex to have these on there, which is why I definitely prefer the board. Same with Unmatched. But a game like Survive, you actually need to be able to have these above the location. So you actually have to have these for a game like Survive Escape from Atlantis. A game like Gutenberg, or not Gutenberg, a game... I'm forgetting. Terracotta Army, that's the one. I have my spot for it right there. But a game like Terracotta Army, you have, you know, a thing of 12, so you could just put the 1 through 12 on the track and everyone agrees with that. And so then, you know, when you're placing your worker, you just say, hey, I'm going to place it on 5 or whatever that might be. Another tool that I have that's very useful are these. So these you can write on their dry erase tokens. You can use them for whatever you want, whether it is, you know, putting numbers on places like for that, or, you know, numbering boards or whatever you might want them for. I can use those. And then because I have tons of these leftover tiddlywinks, I have them organized by color just in case I want them. I'll attempt to organize them by color, but just in case I want to have them color coded. But these are handy for if you have seeded spots, like a specific tokens are placed on the board, but they're hidden information, but they're consumable. So once someone uses it, that needs to come off the board. But as the remote side, you don't have them seeded. The running side does, and it would be really annoying to be like, okay, look up, okay, they have it there. So what I do is I will place these tokens on all the seeded locations while having the actual tokens be organized by type. So that way, when I go and I take whatever it is, if it's hidden, the remote side would just, you know, hold it up to the camera, show it what it is, and then I'll grab it from my supply and put it in my stock. Or, you know, I'll just take this off the board, put it back in this supply, and they would just tell me what type it is, and I would pull that off and put it in my supply. So I do utilize those. I also have these meeples that are a little bit prettier version of the tiddlywinks that can be used for the same thing. Sometimes if I'm playing a game with Brooks and Kitty that I don't have, I'll use these for some of the resources that we use. Sometimes I'll use my pandemic cubes. So I'll utilize some of my games to have for tokens for games that I don't have, if I just need to be able to keep track of which tokens I have and which ones I don't, for that sort of thing. Specialized dice. So some games have specialized dice, like King of Tokyo, for instance. Like my friends in New York do not have a copy, but they can just take regular D6s, and I can send them a picture of this, and they can easily see, okay, if they roll a 5 on their D6, that means they rolled a paw. Versus a 1 through 3 is obviously the 1 through 3. But, I mean, that's just one thing. And then something I do love when design or publishers will have the dice listed, the dice faces listed in the book. I could just send them a picture of the book itself, and then they have all the you know, the nice, not something like that, but, you know, nice, what it looks like on the actual die to look at. Sometimes if there's less than 6, I will write, you know, maybe it's 1 through 4 for this one and 5 to 6 for this last one. So I might do something like that, and I'll write it in the rule book. If you don't want to destroy your rule book, you could use like a sticky note to put in there. Just anything to help get your message across, to have it so that all sides are agreeing, hey, if I roll a 5, it is this. I can't say, oh yeah, I rolled 5 of these paws. Of course I did. Again, going back to trust. And then there are some things that utilize simultaneous selection. So like if you're betting with something, then, you know, you just put your hand out and then reveal, kind of like you do in person. And then, you know, for simultaneous that card revealing, you put the card up so that people can't see what it is. And then, okay, everyone's decided, you'll flip it, you'll look, oh no, Kitty beat me. And so then Kitty gets the reward and everyone updates accordingly. And then the other thing would be a game that you just normally can just do what you want and everyone sees it, you would just vocalize. Like in a game like Pandemic, where, you know, you're moving from city to city, curing diseases, you will just vocalize, hey, I'm going to move from Ho Chi Minh to Bangkok, and I'm going to treat a disease there. And then, you know, I might build a research station, and so everyone can know what you're doing, keep up with it. And Pandemic is definitely one that I will separate them out by the colors, so that way everyone can have the cards. And we do play with open cards or open hands in Pandemic remotely. You might get a little bit alpha gamer depending on your group, a little bit more than normal if they don't have a copy. So you just kind of have to keep that in check. But it makes it easier to keep track of what everyone has, and you're not fumbling through the different things and just turning them in when they turn in for a cure, stuff like that. And also you won't have to be like, okay, well, I'm going to play my number 3 card when they have a hand of cards. So it makes it a little bit easier for that. And then some games like Wingspan, you actually will do what's called, I call card elimination. So every side will have their own deck, like the bird feeder, you'll have all the same dice spaces in there. But, you know, with a stack of birds this tall now, I mean, you don't want to go through for one bird. So, you know, you just have the 1 through 3 on there. So, you know, each side has a different bird selection. So, you know, Brooks is over there in New York. He might take the first one. So he'll be like, okay, I'll take the first. So I'll just discard whatever that is. And then it'll be replaced by something else. So that way, you know, you're getting the flow of the cards varying, but you're not having to bog down and have to find the specific card, because that's no fun. Yeah, so some card games, it makes sense to just divvy them up like Everdell, where it makes sense. There's a lot of duplications, so you could divide them by the different types of resources and have them laid out that way. And then you can easily grab it. And, you know, you kind of want to keep track of what other people are doing in their own, you know, farm or whatever they're called, tableau. So you do want to keep track of having everything the same for games like that. But a game like Wingspan, nah, you're kind of like multiplayer solitaire. So when you are laying a pink bird, I will say, hey, I'm laying a pink bird, so, you know, whenever you do this action, I will benefit. And then whenever I do whatever action it is, I will vocalize what I'm doing, just so that everyone can feel included. And if they do have a pink action, they can remember to do that. If I have a brown action that benefits everybody, you know, of course, announce what that is, you know, so on and so forth. That's all I can think of at the moment. Hopefully that helps you get jump started on it. But just remember, remote play, you might play a hidden movement game the same way for 5 games in a row. 5 different games. They play fantastic in doing it in this specific way. And then you get to your 6th game and, oh, this doesn't work. How? Why? Just try to find a new way. Experiment. Have fun. And just learn what works best for your group. Because what works best for mine might not work best for you. You might have a serious alpha gamer issue with Pandemic where it might be easier for you to deal with saying, hey, I'm going to play my number 2 card versus going, oh my goodness, I have to deal with being just told what to do. It's not really playing a game. So depending on your group, depending on your play styles, you might want to change some of these up, but hopefully that gets you a foundation that you can grow on. But feel free to reach out and I'll try to help you as best as we can. And until next time, just remember to have fun, be present, and be you. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you find value in our content, please like, comment, or subscribe. Let a friend or family member know that we exist. Help us spread our channel and bring remote gaming to a table near you. Thank you very much, and have a great day.